Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Whatnauts review show number 155. Today, we are going to be discussing the first two volumes of The Unwritten, a comic book by Mike Carey and Peter Gross. I'm excited to dive into that one. But if you did not know, this here review show, we cover all sorts of different topics and genres and mediums. We read it, watch it, come back here and discuss it. Something new each week. My name is Kyle Springer, and I am joined by Melissa Wilkinson.
Hello.
How's it going?
I'm doing good. Disneyland is back open, and I won't be there. I've never been there, but I can just see videos of people going back to Disneyland for the first time in like over 400 days, and it feels good to watch.
Amazing. Yeah, it's good indeed that things are starting to kind of reopen. They're starting to. It's a good feeling. So I know both you and I get our second shots really soon.
Yeah.
So good news indeed. Let's see. It's a good day here in Virginia, here in the East Coast. Can't really complain. I've spent this entire weekend playing the new Pokemon Snap.
Oh,
game,
yeah.
And that was a lot of fun. I rolled credits on that last night. So beat the game. It was a lot of fun.
Whoa.
I enjoyed it. I recommend it if you have nostalgia for that game there. So
Jam sent me a screenshot of that game, and it was like the professor of the game saying something, and their name is Professor Mirror. And I was so upset that this professor didn't have a tree name like all the other Pokemon professors. Then Jams was like, well, it's not a Pokemon professor, it's a camera professor.
Yeah. He's like
okay, then that's
ecological
permissible.
photographer.
Okay.
Guy, so
I was like, you can't run out of trees yet. Like, there's enough trees that we can have a new Pokemon tree name professor until I die.
Yeah, true indeed. But yeah, that's what I've been up to. However, let's get down to business. The Unwritten. Start discussing that. Melissa, so I pitched this one. I had heard of this comic. I had heard some nice things, but it's one that I didn't hear people discussing much. When it was mentioned, it was like, oh yeah, that one's good. You know, so I was like, oh, okay. Well, I guess maybe I don't need to get to it right away or something like that. But Melissa, I was very surprised with how much I enjoyed this one.
Yeah.
I think as of right now, it's still early on. I think this is my biggest surprise of the year. I really dug this. This was great.
Nice.
What did you think?
I also really liked it. It is exactly what I thought it was going to be, but a lot more.
Yeah.
This book has so much supplementary material, so many side stories in it already, so many like little tangential pathways I wasn't expecting. And they're all fascinating, and I want to get back to the core story. I'm like, you gave me too many good things. I can't balance them all.
Yeah, and we only read the first two volumes, but even still, in those like 12-ish issues, like it didn't feel like it was bloated or there was too much or it didn't focus enough on one thing. Like it had a lot, and it did it all really well. Like I don't felt like I did not feel like I was missing something and be like, man, I wish I would have heard, learned more about that stuff. I mean, I do wish I knew more about all of this stuff, but I didn't feel like one was lacking, if that makes sense. I was satisfied with what I've read so far. And I would love to go back and keep reading this series. It was expertly written. It was smart. It made me be like, geez, I know nothing about literature. This is cool. I know some of these names, but I don't know their work.
Yeah.
But yeah, this had a fascinating story. I think the like pitch of this book is enough to get me in, but it does so much more. Like it's not it's really not what we pitched it as last week, which is what if Harry Potter was based on a real person, and then that person starts to like doubt his existence and stuff like that. I think I pitched it as, oh, now he thinks
Something
he's
like that,
in
yeah.
a book or something, which is not the case. But yeah, like it is that, but then they take it so much farther than that, and that like I was just like, oh, this is neat. I really like this. There's some like Illuminati stuff going on. It's neat.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's fun. Let's see. Other general thoughts and stuff. Did you like the art?
Yeah, the art's gorgeous. I particularly liked the cover images and how much of the art is like light lines over dark colors, dark backgrounds, like really interesting high contrast brushwork.
Yeah.
Beautiful book. I love all the typography. The lettering in this book is excellent.
Yeah. Yeah, the artwork is interesting because it's realistic, but it's not so realistic that you can't have like cartoony moments and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There is some like cartoonish villainy and characters from time to time, but it all mixes really well. So the art is neat indeed. Let's see. Other things that I wanted to mention, just kind of not spoilery. Yeah, there is a lot of like extra material in the book, which I enjoyed a lot. If you're familiar with like Watchmen and how they have all the like newspaper stuff, it has similar things to that. It has like social media posts and search pages and stuff like that. And then these like side stories, I guess is what we can call them for now. I'm sure they will factor in somehow, some way down the road. But yeah, they just seemed like extra stories from this from this universe, with characters that we might know, or like in from actual books and stuff, or maybe a story about the author of some of these books, and it was just neat stuff indeed.
Yeah,
I liked it a lot. Cool. Well, let's get into a basic plot synopsis of this stuff, and then we can get into spoilers and stuff like that down the road.
The whole world is obsessed with this Harry Potter type book series about a boy wizard named Tommy Taylor. And the writer supposedly based Tommy Taylor off of his son, Tom. He was inspired by his boy. He made his boy into this hero and gave him these magical adventures. And now Tom is an adult, you know, and he goes to all these Tommy Taylor fan conventions. He's kind of a celebrity as like the embodiment of Tommy Taylor in the real world. But he's like, it's not me. Don't call me Tommy. I hate being called Tommy. I'm Tom. There's also this mystery where his dad, we don't know if he really disappeared or if he's just very far removed from the public eye. Nobody's really sure what happened to him. Is he going to ever write another book? We don't know. And Tom is at a convention when a woman approaches him, insisting that he is the actual Tommy Taylor of the storybook come to life.
Basic. Well, she insinuates that like a bunch of documents around his life have been forged, and it's very obvious that he didn't know that. And he's
Yeah.
he has this like existential crisis of like, no, I am real. I am who I say I am. Like, I'm not the
Yeah,
kid
like
from
I
those
don't
books.
remember my mom, but I definitely had a mom because my dad told me I had a mom.
Right? Yeah. So he just has this crisis and doesn't really know what to make of it, and that kind of sets him on the path for this big adventure. And
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing I read on Comixology was like there's a literary underworld that he
Yeah.
discovers and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, it's an interesting book indeed. I enjoyed it a lot. But Melissa, let's get into some housekeeping and then we'll get into
Mm-hmm.
spoilers. If you guys did not know, we have multiple podcasts here at the Whatnauts. You guys can find out more information on our website, which is thewhatnauts.com, as well as your favorite podcasting platform of choice. Just type in the Whatnauts and all of our shows will pop up right there. If you like what we do, patreon.com/the Whatnauts is where you can support us for as little as $1 a month. We have a $3 tier, which you guys can get all kinds of exclusive content. And we are recording our next one right after we record this. So be on the lookout for that. We want to give a big shout out to our Patreon supporters at the $5 tier and above. So thank you to Sam and thank you to Greg Miller for
Thanks.
supporting us. It means a lot. So thank you. Thank you. We love you both. And congratulations to Greg and his wife who just announced that they are pregnant. So
Aww.
there you go. About to be a new dad. So if you guys like live streams, we are usually there each Sunday afternoon, each Wednesday and Friday. Be on the lookout for all of that stuff at twitch.tv/the Whatnauts. We have been kind of slacking lately on our live streams, especially when we're playing video games on Wednesdays and Sundays. But we are looking to fix that ASAP. But sometimes life just gets in the way, so can't really do much about that. But we are hoping to get back to that as soon as possible. If you want, you can subscribe to our channel on Twitch, and if you have Amazon Prime, you also have Twitch Prime. You just have to link your accounts, which is super simple, and then you have a free subscription to give out each month. And we would love that to be us here at the Whatnauts, because then we can make bigger and better content for you down the road, which would be sweet. So there you go. That's housekeeping this week. Last thing I do want to mention is it's up right now for Patreon supporters, but I assume by time you guys hear this, it will be out to the public. On the Captain's Log this week, we got to interview Paul Bay, who is the creator of the Black Tapes podcast and the Big Loop podcast and Marvels, the audio drama adaptation of the graphic novel. We've talked about much of his work here on the podcast, and we've recommended it multiple times. But the very, very first podcast that the Whatnauts put out back in like 2015 was on the Black Tapes podcast, was on his work. So it was a dream to get to talk with him and interview him. So please go check that out. He has some amazing stories. It was a lot of fun. So definitely go check that out on the Captain's Log. That being said, we are now officially done with housekeeping. Melissa, let's get into spoilers. I spit really big when I said spoilers. I don't know if it got caught on camera or not, but just like, spoilers.
Well, if somebody was listening to the audio podcast, they've had no idea. So you've just outed yourself as Big Spit Man.
Big Spit Man. That's me. Kyle Springer.
Everyone's least favorite X-Men.
Yeah. What's the shoot, what movie was that? I think it was like an Adam Sandler movie, and he meets that kid named Sammy Sprinkler, and he like that was the
I
nickname
don't
because he
know.
spits all the time. He's like, "Hi, I'm Sammy Sprinkler," and he's just like spitting the whole time. Oh well, I digress. Alyssa, let's get into the Unwritten here. What did you want to talk about first? What stood out to you about this book?
Oh, it is very rich. There's a lot going on in a
Absolutely.
lot of different facets. And it's a bit more complex than I thought it was. I think when you first pitched it, I thought it was going to be more like there's this boy who supposedly the books were based on, but just on a surface level. Like the author was inspired by, the personality and the imagination of his son.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Like, oh, I just imagine what if my son was a wizard? And then I thought the twist was going to be that this kid was like, no, I am a wizard. Yeah. Like, dad just wrote down everything verbatim, and, we can't tell people I'm a wizard. So we
Yeah.
said it's fiction. I thought it was going to be something kind of like that. But instead, to have this, instead of the books are based off of the boy was based off of the books. Like he's just been pulled out of the pages and brought to life as a Pinocchio, as a real boy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting twist because I did think it was going to lean a little more into the Harry Potter aspect than what we got here. We do see pages of the book. We see some text, and then it's a comics. How you see the artwork of these like bits of the novels, which of which there are 13 out, and they're waiting on the 14th one there. But yeah, you see some of that stuff, and yeah, it is absolutely. It's like, oh, this is like, okay, there's Harry, Ron, and Hermione. This is Voldemort. Like that, like it is those characters, basically. But yeah, it doesn't necessarily parallel what's happening in real life, but I think it is giving you hints, or at least introducing you to characters of like, hey, this is the Voldemort character. Pay attention because you might see him down the road here. Or here's Mingus, the flying cat, which is a
very cute,
great name because apparently he's a trumpet player. Like the jazz musician Charles Mingus, which is where he got the cat's name. So I was like, oh, I like that. Okay.
That's cool. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So like, yeah, they're starting to introduce you to these concepts of like, oh, he played the last note, and that's this like apocalyptic trumpet sounds that does something, who knows what. And yeah, I was expecting to be more in that world, and I guess have that be more of the world we inhabit rather than real life, if that makes sense. Like
yeah.
I guess I was thinking the existential crisis was going to be more of the thing like yeah, I actually am this character. I did all of this stuff. I need to hide this and like figure out how to have a normal life. But he's so used to like flying cats and magic and all of that stuff, and it's really not that. At least so far in the book, and I think I dug this more. That he really does believe that he is just this like normal guy. Like hi, my name's Tom. Like that's it.
Yeah. He wears bowling shirts. He's like an extremely regular man. He also doesn't appear to have a real job besides going to Tommy Taylor conventions.
Yeah. He they make reference to Christopher Robin at the start of the
Yes.
book, which is apparently what the creator was like. He like that is the inspiration for this character, and where I got the idea from, because I guess in that guy's autobiography, the real Christopher Robin like said something along the lines of like, I felt like my father stole my childhood and like made a bunch of money off of it and then gave it back in a way that I couldn't do anything with. And so he was just like, well, fuck you, Dad. And so, yeah, like this book kind of takes that and then is like, but what if there was a big conspiracy wrapped up in all of that? Which I'm a sucker for that stuff. So this spoke to me very fast when I was like, oh, there's like this Illuminati, this like shadowy cabal of literary figures. What is this? I want to know more.
Yeah. Where they like watch over your life. And if you continue to write what they want you to write, you push out the messages and you sort of influence the public in the way they like, they'll set your life up for you.
Yeah.
Like I think at the end of the first volume, we go back in time and we read from Rudyard Kipling's journal, you know, the author of the Jungle Book, and how these people came to him, and he goes to London and he meets Oscar Wilde, and he just says offhand that he doesn't care for Oscar Wilde, and then they have Oscar Wilde thrown in jail. And he's like, that's not what I thought or wanted you to do. And then when he starts deviating from what it was that they originally sort of hired him to do, then his kids start dying mysteriously. Like they knock off the first one and the second one. And he's like, God, I don't want to do this, but I have to go back to being their man. I have to write the stories they want me to write because I've just got the one kid left. And I got to make sure she stays alive.
Yeah.
It's very sad.
Yeah, it's mysterious. It's, it does feel like it has this global scale, and I'm not gonna say that I feel like something like this actually does happen in the literary world. No, I don't. But it like, for a fiction, this doesn't feel too far off, if that makes sense. Like it makes sense that like, hey, if you want to be a shadowy group that is kind of controlling the world and the way it develops, the stuff you publish, the words you write are really important part of that stuff, like getting your message out there, making people believe it, like all of that stuff, or what you don't write instead, right? As the book is named, The Unwritten. Like that stuff can have a big impact. And so it is this really neat idea to have this like Illuminati type cabal just being like, no, you will control the world. Yes, you will write Frankenstein now. You will write The Jungle Book next. And it seems ridiculous for some of that stuff, but then when you see some of the other work, like you mentioned here with the Rudyard Kipling stuff, he was writing like pro British Empire stuff at first, which I don't know how true that is. This is one of the things where it was like, I recognize the name Kipling, but I don't. I'm not familiar enough to be like, oh, good old Kipling, you know, The Jungle Book. But then once he was like, and then I wrote my series of Jungle Books, I was like, oh, okay, he's writing Mowgli and all of that. I know, okay, that makes sense. But yeah, I'm not sure how true that was, that he was writing.
I think so.
Pro British Empire. I guess all that stuff seems around that time, so I wouldn't put it past them.
I think so. Yeah, this I was an English major, and this is a lot of stuff that I don't know. I'm not like I'm in the same boat. It's like I know these names for sure,
Yeah.
and I've heard the names of the writers and their works, and maybe I know a couple lines or characters, but that's really it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's good. Uh, Speaking of which, the main character, Tom, uh, he has a similar knowledge set. Like he knows a lot of the names, and then the one thing his father drilled into him was like the geography of a lot of these books. Of like, oh, this book is set here. That is the tavern that this thing had in that book, and it was based off of this building. Like he knows that stuff, but he doesn't necessarily know the works itself.
Yeah, like he doesn't know what's in a book, but he knows where the book was set and where the author wrote it.
Yeah, and so it's knowledge that makes him seem smart, right? That we do get this one scene where he goes in this library and is asking for a certain character who is using a pseudonym, but he didn't really know that at first. And they're like, oh, that's a character in a book. Like, what do you mean you need to speak with them? You know? And then he mutters some nonsense to me, and they're like, oh, so you know all of these books? And he's like, no, I have no idea what's in these books, right. but I know some names and places.
Yeah, the woman who approaches him at the convention is named Lizzie Hexam. And she mentions that she works for this university, and he goes there and asks for her. They're like, the only Lizzie Hexam we have is in the library. She's a character in this Dickens book. He's like, oh, yeah, I know where on the London map that book is set, but I couldn't name you one of the characters. I didn't know that's where she pulled her name from.
Yeah. He's introduced to this real strange world very fast. Because it's at this like comic book convention. That he kind of gets called out, and then it's quick that the public turns on him. Like, everything you said was a lie. And still there's like, oh no, he is the savior. He is the one from the books. He's here to say he can do magic. And they're like trying to worship him as a savior. And then the book takes a turn that I was not expecting.
Yeah.
It like, I don't want to say it's a horror story. It's not. But the part of this book are these like 2 or 3 issues at the end of volume 1. There's like a big like murder party going on. A whole bunch of people get murdered, and Tom is framed for all of these murders. The cops show up, and he's the only one left there, and there's all these dead bodies around him. And then we see Mingus, the flying cat. He's just like, you guys are seeing this too, right? Like, there shouldn't be a flying cat here.
Yeah, and Tommy Taylor, his equivalent of the lightning bolt scar is that he has this like sigil sort of thing tattooed on the back of his hand.
Yeah.
And this just appears on the back of Tom's hand at one point, and he's like, I gotta wash this off. Like, I don't want this. I'm not supposed to have this. My life is bad enough already. Now they're all really going to call me Tommy. I don't want that.
Yeah. He's just sitting there like, well, that's not good. Just like looking at his hand. Yeah, he's still like, he's in disbelief, but he's not shocked, if that makes sense. Like he's taking it in stride, and he's just like, I like, this stuff is strange. I don't know why this is happening, but it's happening, and I'm not freaking out about it. Like, he's oddly calm. Which I guess gives more credence to the whole thing. Like, you actually are Tommy from these books. You just don't know it. But yeah, he's starting to unravel this mystery within the book, or not within the book. within all of these books. So at this like murder party before it becomes this big thing, it's a bunch of writers, I guess, like on some kind of tour. It seemed like I
Yeah, it's
don't
like
think that was it exactly, but
they're doing a workshop in the manor where Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein. And apparently long before that, this was the same place John Milton wrote Paradise Lost, which I didn't know.
interesting. Yeah, and then also where Tom's father started to write these books. So there is this
this manor came into the Taylor family. Yes.
Or at least was maybe something that this literary cabal was like, hey, you will work out of this house here and we'll set you up in this big mansion / safe house with all our secrets and stuff like that. And Tom ends up finding the like secret office that his father worked in by finding a hidden safe and figuring out the combination, and then finding the doorknob that like fit in the hole and stuff like that. And inside that room, there's a map. And a map that has all these markings of these like locations in all of these books, which is the stuff that he knows. He's like, hey, I recognize these things. Like, that's where this book was written. That's where that thing was based off of. And so he ends up understanding it as this like map of stories, or like where stories originated. And correct me if I'm wrong, but they're essentially using this map to go to location to, I guess, kind of fix some of these things, or undo some things, or change certain things to.
They do that once. And when they do that, it seems like that's not where they were supposed to have gone. Like, that's not where they are in their journey yet at that point. So I think it happens. It's something that Tom can do, but I don't know yet if that's the point of what they need to be doing.
Yeah, because they end up basically being transported by this map into like pre-World War II Nazi Germany, or like right when the Nazis are just starting to get big
1940.
there. Yeah. And the story Judd Suss, I don't know if I'm saying that right. I think that's it. That's being turned into a movie. And the whole idea behind that is that this book was about this Jewish guy and his life, and I think it is more of a tragedy, if I'm not like it's not what this movie is. The Nazis basically turned it into propaganda of like, hey, here's why you should hate the Jews, and that's kind of the thing that they fix with this, is they end up fixing that so that movie never really gets made, or the book is like brought back into focus of like, hey, here is the real story. It's not necessarily that they're like fixing it, like, oh, if we change this word on page 93 everything will be better.
I think they're just trying to escape from the jail on fire where they were to begin with.
Yeah,
it's a whole other thing.
Back,
and they're like, just put the doorknob in the wall. Like, let's just get out somewhere. And they wind up in this, 1940s Germany. And this beautifully illustrated portion of the book. Like, it's almost like this is a shadowland that they're walking through. Like, everything looks like it's drawn wonderful, really realistically. And like very shadowy, like it looks like an old photograph. And then the characters are illustrated the same. They're very vibrantly colored, and they're just sort of walking through all of this world, like as these shadows who nobody really sees, except if they pay too much attention to any one person, that person absorbs their focus and comes to life, and then they can see these interlopers.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. But yeah, there was this book that was written by a Jewish author as the tale of a Jewish man who I think was not a good guy, and then his bad deeds led to his downfall,
Right.
and then he turned back to his religion, and he used that to pick himself up and like came
Right,
through more devoted to his faith, a better man. Yeah, and then these Nazi filmmakers told that story but cut it short. It's like, we're not getting the redemption at the end.
See, he's
it's
a
just
bad
look at how
man.
bad this man is. And then like that movie became a big thing, and everybody forgot what the original book was. And the book like lives in this world as something that Lizzie calls a canker. It's like when a book's true message has been corrupted, it's been reversed. It's not the way things are supposed to be anymore.
Yeah.
And Tom, it seems like maybe that's something his father wanted him to eventually fix, but didn't think he was at that stage yet. And then Tom does confront this like book movie monster and kind of sets things right. But this is like the last part of the second volume, the last part of what we read. So we don't really know yet what the consequences of this are, how the world is different.
Right. Yeah. It's an interesting sequence, but that's what it appears to be. That's at least what these like first two volumes seem to be setting up, is like, hey, they will be traveling from location to location and either like fixing things or changing things or somehow like dealing with these stories that have been corrupted, assumingly by this shadowy cabal that have been like, hey, focus more on this thing, or change the story to do this. And yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. That's a really neat concept. Which is then like, oh, this book is really not about this like, hey, what if Harry Potter was based on a real guy? Like, it's something completely new. And yeah, like I said, was not what I was expecting, but a great surprise.
Yeah, one of my favorite parts of this book so far is the supplementary material you mentioned, where like you see blog posts, forum posts, news articles, things like that of people talking about the Tommy Taylor world and the ongoing story of Tom Taylor, how it's believed that he's a fraud, you know, that he's been lying, like he's not really Wilson Taylor's son. Or like Wilson Taylor was like, what if I said that I based Tommy Taylor on a real son? Let me adopt this boy secretly and be like, yeah, that's my boy. I based the wizard on him. Isn't that fun? Isn't that nice? Everybody buy more of the books. Like there's people there who think that's what has happened. There's like sort of a cult who thinks, no, he's real. He is the Tommy Taylor. He's magic. He can heal us all. And then after that, he's framed for those murders at the Frankenstein house. You watch the fallout of that and how it affects people. And we see blog posts from this one psychologist talking about this fallout of this like Tommy Taylor syndrome, which is just the disillusionment that so many people in the world feel now, knowing that this world is huge. It's like the defining story of the time.
Yeah.
Everybody's obsessed with Tommy Taylor. And to have your happy place, the place that taught you to dream, to imagine, to like feel heroic and go on adventures, to have that tainted by association of what the real Tom Taylor supposedly did, people feel traumatized. And like we see occasionally blog posts and news interviews with this woman talking about that trauma that people are feeling.
They haven't spoken on it much yet, but there is this idea of like, how do you separate the art from the artist, right? Because there are some things that are like, oh, this artwork is wonderful, but the artist himself has done some real shitty things. Does that mean we don't support the work anymore? Is there a way to appreciate what they did without appreciating that. Like, how do you deal with that and cope with that? And I like that
Yeah.
it's digging into that, but also like hasn't explicitly dealt with that yet. Like, here's how you cope. Step one, do this, right?
Right.
It's like it's
And I
exploring
think
that in a
that's
story.
yeah, and like that's a conflict I think a lot of people go through in real life that I have not seen a fiction tackle within its own story.
Yeah.
I can't point to a fictional character who's gone through that same experience a lot of us have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure they're out there, but yeah, there's not one that's like, oh, this guy. Um yeah, it's really neat, all this supplemental material stuff. I also really enjoyed the like 100 Acre Wood Peter Rabbits thing,
Yeah.
because it's like these cute little animals, and then whoever the like Peter Rabbit character is not supposed to be there. Like, it seems like it's
Mhm.
someone trapped inside that rabbit's body, and they are just the
Yeah.
grumpiest. Like, and they cuss so much, and they're just like, "Ah, f you, this, that." It's just so funny. And yeah, but there is this like haunting thing when he goes to meet the like Alice in Wonderland kind of character who's also in that
Mhm.
world there, and he's like, I know you. Like, you're not a little girl. You're a grown woman pretending to be a younger woman. And that's not healthy. And it's a little strange. And I don't know exactly what's going on here, but this isn't
Well, it
right.
was like
Like,
a it seemed like it was like a an author who wanted to write herself into the story but thought it would appeal more to children if she said there all these cute animals went to visit a schoolgirl like the same age
right. Yeah.
as the kids who she wanted to read this book. So and like the rabbits making fun of her for really being this like old crone who's like now created this immortal life for herself as a young girl.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole thing was interesting because we don't understand who this character is. Like, are we gonna meet whoever this rabbit person
I
is in
I
real
wonder
life?
if we did. Like if
We
this is
could
one
have,
of those
yeah.
shadowy cabal operatives who we saw earlier and just like didn't like they were around for a couple pages. We didn't really get their name. Yeah, I was reading this saying maybe I know who this guy was. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we're not sure yet, but that's the thing. Like, it's an interesting concept, and I'm fascinated by it, and I want to find out. Okay, how does this tie in? Like, how does this factor into this story? Is this one of the locations that we will be visiting down the road? Or yeah, is this some character that we will eventually meet and then find out they got banished into some story that they shouldn't be in? Um, yeah, that's neat. Like, especially if that's how the rules work of like whether it's this shadowy cabal or it's something that Tom eventually does and banishes someone to
Yeah.
to that. Like, the fact that that is possible, that you can trap someone in another story, is like,
Yeah.
ooh, that's cool. I like that. Uh,
Yeah, and the story like continues around as normal even though we've got this like
yeah,
rabbit. Yeah, I mean he's literally a rabbit. You know, like Rabbit from Winnie the Pooh.
yeah,
With his See, we've got that sort of a character who's just like cursing everyone out, who's screaming, who's like stabs a mouse with an arrow, and then the mouse doesn't even bleed. She's like full of stuffing, like a little plush animal. Like the story is continuing around as normal. Like all of his friends are just like, oh boy, Rabbit Mr. Bun is sure in a sour mood today.
yeah. um, yeah. So yeah, that stuff is good. I will want to circle back around to the jail. Um,
Yeah.
so we see Tom get arrested for these murders, and he's put in jail. And the second volume is entitled "Inside Man." And it's kind of a mystery of like, what does that mean exactly there? And we find out that his cellmate is the Inside Man, publishing a
Mm-hmm.
blog by the same name, the Inside Man. And he is this like embedded journalist to be like, hey, I'm here to keep an eye on Tom and document everything. Like, this is his story of like, did he really kill these people? Is he really magic? Like, he's in jail right now. He's not going anywhere. He has to talk to someone, right? Um, and so they're in there. But the interesting part with this story is that the warden of the jail, who apparently like lives across the street from it,
Yeah.
uh, he he has two small kids that are really, really big into these Tommy Taylor books. And
Mm-hmm.
that is their bedtime stories. They read a couple of pages or a chapter in those books. And when the father, the warden, is reading those, he gets involved too. Like he pretends, I forget his name, but he's like the Dumbledore
Yeah.
headmaster character, and he kind of starts acting it out with his kids, and his wife thinks it's kind of strange that he's kind of enabling his kids, especially with all the stuff that is going on in the news. But he has this staunch, like stubborn standpoint of like, they're kids. They need this magic. They need some
Mm-hmm.
kind of imaginative thing to help them dream. Um, and then he goes to work and he's just like, and you will listen to everything I say because you're mine and here.
Yeah.
You know. Uh,
Yeah, and I like that. Well, the story shows that he needs that too. Like, he spends his day
he
among
needs a release.
all of these criminals.
Yeah.
You know, like the staff of the jail has been corrupt. Like, they mentioned that that's something he's working to clean up. Like, too many guards taking bribes, sneaking things in. He's in such a bad situation all day, and when he goes home, he wants to see his kids filled with that much wonder. You know, filled with that much magic and like hope, and like, we can play at being heroes too. Let's draw a protection sigil on the window. Like, that really gives him something. That's his break at the end of the day too.
Yeah.
Just the way it is for the kids.
Yeah. The kids, however, seem to be into it a little too much, to the point where, yeah, they start to take their daughter, especially, to like a child psychologist to be like, hey, what's going on here with this? And yeah, his response is like, she's not really distinguishing between fantasy and reality. Um, which in normal everyday real life is not a good thing, and it can be very dangerous. It's complicated in this story, in this comic book, especially when the premise is like, Tommy Taylor might be a real magician. He might he might have actual magic powers and stuff like that. Unfortunately, we don't really get to continue on with that story, which is really, really sad, because while Tom is in jail, we see Lizzie Hexam also get herself put in jail, which is kind of a lame way that she got herself put in jail. She went to the police station to be like, I have something to say about the Tommy Taylor thing, and then she drops her purse when she's inside the station, and she has handcuffs and a knife that fall out, and it's just like that. Sure,
it felt. It felt too comedic for the tone of the rest of the book. Yeah.
And it was like, okay, maybe they detain her and question her. And I guess in today's day and age, yeah, they might arrest her, but it was like, but then to send her to jail, like, I was just like, what is going on here? That's weird.
Yeah, it happens. It happens very fast.
Yeah, but she gets in jail, and her whole thing is she is actually trying to deliver the map to Tom. She has that on her possession, and so that is brought into the jail. And so when they start escaping using this like magic doorknob thing, and they meet Frankenstein in the jail, which was strange.
Oh, and then Tom is talking about the Song of Roland. And as he's telling that story, as he's reliving it, like Roland's ghost appears in front of them. Like he was able to, like that girl from Irredeemable. Like if he tells the ghost story,
that's
he can
exactly what
ghost.
I was about to mention. Yeah, it's like that character whose powers are like, I tell stories, and they're so real that the characters come to life and do all of that stuff. So there's some weird things going on, but they start their escape, and the warden's children see part of the jail on fire, and there also happens to be a bunch of like mercenary soldiers invading the jail from the literary cabal who seem to be there to kill Tom. And so just a lot is going on like all at once, and it's chaos.
Yeah, and like the warden was allowing them to come in and kill Tom, I think because he didn't want the situation with Tom to get worse, because he was shielding his kids from that news that the man who Tommy Taylor was supposedly based on maybe committed all of these heinous murders. Yeah. Like he didn't want the kids to know. He wanted them to keep living in that fantasy world. And it seems like maybe he wants Tom killed so that nobody ever knows for sure. And maybe if his life ends here, his legacy will be sad rather than shameful. Like it'll be easier for his kids to deal with when they do learn the story when they get older. Like it'll preserve more of the magic of the books for them.
Yeah, it might be something more like, yeah, the books were wonderful and it was great, but I think the pressure of fame just got to him at the end, which is really sad.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, what he was hoping for. But the kids see it and go to the jail, and they make it inside somehow, some way, and in these escape attempt at the end, there's like a part, or like someone shoots a rocket launcher that hits a part of the building that then crumbles it, and it kills the kids. Like they get crushed by that stuff, and the warden is just beside himself with just
he's so distraught he turns into a vampire. He becomes Count Ambrosio, who's like the Voldemort of the Tommy Taylor books.
Yeah, like that's a weird thing too, of like how does that work? Can characters that feel a certain way evoke certain characters and thus like turn into them? Or is this like this guy kind of made a deal with the devil, so to speak? Like in that instance, like, hey, I will do anything if you give me my kids back. And that devil character may or may not be Count Ambrosio, or however you say his name there. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? But yeah, there are some wild things going on in this book. I liked it a lot. The artwork is imaginative.
Let me ask you a silly question.
Yeah, shoot.
So the blogger, I'm forgetting his name. The cellmate, the redheaded guy.
Sure, yeah.
He's got this like kind of cartoonish like goatee when you first see him, and then as you get more close-ups of him and panels as the story goes on, you see like he's got a very exaggerated chin. Like, it's not all like goatee. Like, he's got like a very long chin. So long that I'm wondering, is this a fantasy creature? I don't want to make fun of the guy. I don't want to make fun of like real physical features that exist out there in the world, but he reminds me of like a little goblin man or something.
He kind of reminds
Do
me
you
of the
understand
monarch.
this?
Like with the like long
Yeah, he does have a real monarch look to him.
Like he doesn't seem villainous. Like he does seem like he's going to end up being the more like Ron Weasley character.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm wondering if there is something more to him. My guess would be maybe like a Mr. Tumnus character. Is that his name from the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe?
Yeah. When you've got a little goatee, it really makes you feel like a pan. You're a fawn of some
Billy
kind,
Goat's
a goat man.
Gruff or Scruff or whatever it is. Yeah, I don't know. Like we don't have much to go on with that, but yeah, I am wondering if there are characters that we have met or will meet down the road that are like fictional characters in disguise or magical creatures in disguise, or maybe they are something and they just don't know it. Like they are kind of like the same thing as Tom, of just like, no, I'm Tom. Like, I'm not Tommy. I'm not that boy wizard. That wouldn't make sense. Magic. But they might be. Who knows?
One of my favorite little mystery bits in the story is when Tom goes to see Sue. Sue Sparrow is like the Hermione of these books, but like his father had an old flame named, her name's also Sue. Maybe he named the character after her, who he's always sort of had a grudge against, because the story is that his father had an affair with this woman and was off with her and missed Tom's birth. It's like Tom knows her. They're mildly civil with each other, but like they've never really liked each other, never connected. We don't know what that whole story is back there. But he goes to visit her to ask, like, can you tell me something about my mom? Because like now he is questioning his past since those papers were brought up. Like, Wilson Taylor bought this baby from a couple in Croatia or something like that. So he goes to her to try and get some answers. Like, I don't really like you or trust you that much, but you were there. I can't get a hold of my dad. You're the only person I know who knew me when I was a kid. And she teaches him this like lesson about how the truth can be anything. Like, she opens the door to her basement and she's like, the light bulb is burned out, but walk downstairs. Tell me how many stairs you count. So she shuts the door. He's there on the staircase in the dark. He's walking down and the stairs keep going.
Yeah.
He counts to like 2,000 steps. And then she opens the door again. The light comes in from the kitchen. He walks back upstairs and he's like, I was 2,000 steps down and 12 steps up. She's like, yeah. Who knows what the truth is?
Yeah. And he doesn't freak out. Like, again, this is one of those things, like, I would be like, what the fuck is your basement? Like, what is wrong with you? What are you hiding? Wow, magic? Magic is real? What is going on? What did you put in my tea? Like, and he's just like, 12 steps up. Huh. Okay.
Right.
Well,
like,
see you later, Sue.
Perplexed. He is somewhat shaken. He's perplexed by everything, but it's like you said earlier, everything's just like, huh, well, that's not good, instead of him like screaming and tearing his hair out.
Yeah.
Like, you can tell on some deep level, like he doesn't understand it, but something about this does feel right to him.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It feels familiar in a strange way. And he's just like, huh, I guess. I guess there could be a way to make me go 2,000 stairs, but I really only technically made it down 12. I don't know. But yeah, so he's dealing with all of that. What do you think Lizzie Hexam is up to? Because she She is. We mentioned Sue and how Sue is also kind of the
Yeah.
Hermione character, but for Tom, Lizzie seems to kind of be the at least for now seems to be the Hermione character, but she's up to something. What do you think she's up to?
Well, when the story starts, it seems like this is some mysterious woman who picked a literary pseudonym. But as the story goes on and we learn more about how the lines between reality and fiction are very blurred, maybe that is the woman pulled out of
You're right,
Dickens.
yeah.
Like that's just her come to life.
Could be her.
We don't know. And I like the scene where she goes to an airport bookstore and she like she knows Wilson Taylor. She knows Tom's missing father or wherever it is he's been. Like she knows him. She's working with him to try and steer Tom in a certain direction. And she's like standing there in the bookstore asking for answers. And she picks a random book off the shelf, open it. And then in the middle of all of whatever the book normally is supposed to say, there is like a message from Wilson embedded in there saying,
that was
no,
cool.
go to Tom, bring him this map, tell him this.
Yeah, that reminded me of the, like, I believe it's in Chamber of Secrets when they have that diary in Harry Potter and it starts to write back and it's Voldemort. Yeah, it reminded me of that, but she's also hearing his voice over the radio. Like she goes into like a specific shop that has a certain radio, and on that radio is the voice of Tom's father, and she's getting instructions from him. We don't always really see what they are, and we don't really know what they're up to. But that's the thing of like, what is really going on here? Is that really his father, or is that someone else? Is he still alive? Is he trapped somewhere? What's going on? Are they up to no good? Are they really the bad guys? Is this... Who knows? This could be some weird connection where Ambrosio is maybe actually like Tommy Taylor's father, like long lost father, and it's about them like trying to connect of like I'm trying to connect with my son, but my son sees me as this monster. And like how do we fix that and change that and stuff? That's just a wild speculation, but yeah, like we just don't know what they're up to yet. And I think there's like 10 or 11 volumes of this. Let me see. 11 volumes.
Okay.
Is what this said. So we read the first 2. There you go. Yeah.
When is this book from?
Volume 1 released in January 2010, so it was 2009.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. No, there's nothing about this book that feels dated in any way, except for whenever anybody holds up a phone, it's a BlackBerry style phone. Like that kind of gives me a time range.
Good old
yeah, those only
Blackberries.
existed from like 2001 to 2008.
Yeah, and then that last volume looked like it came out in 2015. So it's
okay.
Older, but not super old.
Okay.
Interesting stuff indeed. Yeah, I liked the artwork a lot. I really, really enjoy the cover and what they do with text, especially when it is being wrapped up in like spells and stuff. Like a lot of the cover artwork has like text being like wrapped around people's necks or made to look like water, but there's like messages inside that. There's a couple scenes we get where one character seems to have the power to like melt things, and when he melts things, they turn into this like silvery liquid with
Yeah.
letters inside it that become physical. Because there's a scene where he melts a phone, and it's just this like puddle on the ground, but then this kid walks by and she's like, look, letters on the ground, and her mom like says, don't pick those up, and like
Yeah.
that could be just like, oh, the mom didn't really look to see what it actually
Yeah.
was. But I took that to be like, those are now physical things. Like there is just a
Yeah.
T on the ground and an H and then you know something else there. Yeah, like they do some really fascinating stuff. And then when we got to see the book Judd's Hus, I don't know how to pronounce that correctly.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, the like canker that it
Yeah.
becomes is this fascinating, like just really dense mixture of fonts and characters and texture, and it is just, it's like, it's not given form. It's not like, oh, it looks like a monster or it looks like a person. It is just this thing. It is this overwhelming force.
It reminds me of when the smoke monster would flash and show you images from your past on Lost.
There you go. Yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, like I really like what they did with that, and the artwork, especially for the covers. Interestingly enough, seems to have more of an Asian influence to them, to the colors and the designs and the outfits and stuff like that. It's really, really rich and really dense, but it looks like those, like a line cut painting, like a Chinese wood block painting, but then done in like a modern day comic book style. It's fascinating. It's really good stuff. I like it a lot. So kudos to everyone who worked on the book. Fascinating stuff. Does it say who did the covers? Yuko Shimizu. What does it say? Japanese illustrator based in New York.
They did feel like old Japanese illustrations to me, with those light lines and the way the lines were brushed on.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, she's done a lot of illustration for different magazines and publications and stuff. It looks like this is maybe her only comics work. Interesting. Oh, there was Spy vs. Spy Reimagined.
Spy versus Spy?
Society of Illustrators. I don't know. That was from 2017. Interesting. Okay. Cool. Final thoughts or last things you want to talk about from the Unwritten?
Oh, I wonder if the trade, because it seems like there's definitely been some sort of Faustian bargain going on. I wonder if maybe Wilson Taylor traded, I've written this boy, I want to bring him to life. Like, I'm the Geppetto to his Pinocchio. Make my creation a real boy. But the trade-off is, okay, for 30 years, you'll get to have that, and then you have to go into the book. Like, maybe that's where he is.
Yeah.
Like, he's been the Dumbledore character or something like that. I like the idea that he's also been trapped. Like, in return, he has to be trapped in a fiction.
Well, the weird thing is, so after they get out of the like pre-World War II Nazi Germany, they land in the future by a few years. I don't remember how much. It's not super far in. It's still
it's like 3 months. Yeah.
So 3 months, but I think yeah, it was enough to give. It was enough space to have people kind of forget about Tom Taylor, of just like what happened, where did he go after the jail and stuff like that. But it seems like the next book is coming out, like, or
Yeah.
his father has returned, or something, right? There was,
Well,
because
we do
they
see.
had that newspaper there that said like, Wilson Taylor, he's back, the 14th novel, it's coming out next week, or
And we did
something.
see a scene where his publisher is like gets a package put on his desk, and it's like the 14th manuscript with just like a note on it. We still have not seen Wilson Taylor. We don't have proof that Wilson Taylor still exists out there in the real world.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. We shall see. We shall see what happens there. What do you think is going to be in that 14th manuscript? Do you have thoughts or theories or speculations you might like to see?
Oh, I don't think I know enough yet to predict, because I'm not exact. It seems like the 13th book ended with Count Ambrosio like blows some notes on this magic golden horn, and if he blows the last note, then he'll end the world. But he's turned to stone before then, and like the horn still is in his hand. Like Tommy's able to like get the horn out of his hands, and he doesn't know that if the horn has now been wiped clean, like if all of those notes have to be blown by the same mouth, if he ever blows on this horn again, will it end the world, or will it do something else? Because it seemed like one or two notes would like bring somebody back to life. Like different variations of notes can do other magic things. And it ends with him being unsure if he should try that or not.
That, well, I thought it was like the Ron Weasley character or something who pulled the trumpet out and was about to use it to bring Tom Taylor back, because he in this like final confrontation, it seemed like it killed or stopped both of them, both the Tommy and Ambrosio. So it looks like they were going to resurrect him. So I'm wondering if it was those notes that brought him to the real world of like whoever the Ron Weasley character was, did this and then he's like, bam, I'm a real boy.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if this 13th or this 14th novel is going to be the mystery of like how to find his father, or if it is like if he is a character from a book. Is this like a predestination free will story of like, hey, this manuscript just told the story of everything you did in these 11 volumes, and like it is that story, and it is the story of you, like going from location to location and all these like literary places and fixing them, or who knows what, and saving your father, and
I would love for it to get recursive, where it's about Tommy Taylor, the boy wizard, traveling through the worlds of his own favorite fictional stories.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. You can go see. Oh, yeah. And that's where Birdie Bot made his every flavored bean and stuff like that. Yeah. That'd be good. Interesting. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I liked this book a lot. I one day want to go back and keep reading this book. This is definitely a series to check out. Melissa, do you have recommendations? If people liked this, what else would they like?
Just watch The Never-Ending Story again.
Okay.
Reading this made me think about that, and how that's a fictional world and a real world kind of blending together, where Sebastian gets so passionate about the story that then the child queen in the story starts talking to Sebastian. Like, you were my savior, Sebastian. You have to help me and Atreyu. You have to give me a name.
Yeah. Okay.
Watch that. Watch The Page Master.
True.
Watch Macaulay Culkin melt into a pile of paint, and then he comes out a cartoon boy, and he's friends with Frankenstein and Treasure Island and a Cinderella fairy tale.
Go. Good stuff.
And
go ahead.
And if you like Harry Potter, not the Unwritten, but like the thing Unwritten is kind of inspired by, there's another young adult magic series I really liked that's kind of in the Harry Potter vein. It's called Bartimaeus, and the first book is called the first book is called The Amulet of Samarkand. The author's name is, let me turn around again, I think it's Jonathan Stroud.
Okay.
And it's a story about this boy wizard. And in this world, if a child is born with magical promise, like, you can tell the kid's going to be magic, they have to be taken away from their parents and placed with a foster family that will mentor them and teach them magic. And when they turn 13 or whatever, they have to give up their names, because the way you do magic in this world is that you summon and make a deal with a demon to do something for you. And if a demon learns your true name, they will have power over you.
Yeah.
So that's why it's like, you don't know your birth family. You're going to forget your name, like, just erase your past. Like, you can't be vulnerable. So all these magicians are like these very hardened, impersonal, kind of cold people, because that's what they have to do to be impenetrable to these demons. And so it's about a boy who summons a demon who accidentally does learn his real name. So him and this demon are kind of in this stalemate. And it's a real snarky, wisecracking demon. But also, he was centuries ago summoned by his first wizard to protect him. And that boy ended up dying. And this demon has never gotten over it because he actually really loved that boy. And he sees in this, this arrogant young wizard, he sees that boy again. And he's like, I got to make sure this goes right this time. I can't lose another boy.
Cool. Good stuff. Yeah, you've mentioned that once before. I don't remember if it was here on the review show.
I think it was when we talked about Fairy Tale, because the manga Fairy Tale, because that was also, it involved a magic system where you summoned spirits to do things for you.
True. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Let's see. I want to recommend a webcomic named Namesake. This is something I found out about years ago from another podcast. And then Paul and I, who the co-creator here at the Whatnauts, we covered a good chunk of Namesake way back when on the Whatnauts podcast, back when this show was called that. So you can find that on our website where we talked about it. But it is a very similar story in the sense that there are a bunch of literary characters kind of being dragged into one big giant story. This one centers around the Wizard of Oz. And there is this girl who gets dragged to Oz, and she is the next Dorothy, and she's like, yeah, that's not me. This is a mistake. Like, this is all wrong. And they're just like, no, you're the next Dorothy. Why else would you be here? But yeah, there's magic and there's literary characters, and you see characters from the Grimm fairy tales and from Alice in Wonderland, and it's a great book. It's a web comic. I think it ended. I think they finished up the story. So it should be all available on there. I'm sure you can just look up Namesake web comic. And yeah, from what I read of that story, I liked it a lot. So I would go check that out. My other recommendation, one that I've recommended a number of times before for different things, Gotham Academy, is a great book. It is kind of what if Harry Potter was set in Gotham City, where Batman is. You really don't see Batman all that much because this focuses on new characters, and they are young kids that go to this school, and they don't have magic per se, but there are strange things happening at that school, and there's monsters and secrets and all that stuff, and they are trying to figure out what the deal is and the mystery of the main character and what happened to her mom and stuff like that. So that's a great comic. I liked it a lot, and that one is definitely kid friendly too. So there you go.
Nice.
That's what I would recommend for that. Melissa. We got something special here this week for pitches. Let's see. So you are getting your second shot real soon here. So you were like, hey, there might be a day or two that I have some symptoms and stuff. I don't know if I'm going to be up for recording on that day. So you graciously gave up your picks, and Ignacio, who is one of our co-hosts on Crossplay, our video game podcast here at the Whatnauts, was like, hey, I have 3 movies I want to pitch. So he sent me his pitches. He will be joining us this next week. It might just be me and him. And if Melissa, if you're feeling up to it, you can obviously be on as well.
Yeah, I truly cannot predict it. So I'm like, let me just take the week off ahead of time, and like maybe if you end up, because like I'm going to listen to these and you're going to pick what you want. And, you know, if I decide I'm also interested in that, maybe I'll watch it this week, and maybe I'll feel right enough to join the discussion. Who knows?
For sure. We did have Ignacio on the review show, I want to say a year ago, maybe a little over a year ago. And we did, what was the name of the anime that we watched? Movie? It's not. It's
the body
name.
One. Your Name.
Your Name. That was a good one. I completely blanked on that one. I was like, I want to say it's a silent voice, but it's not that one. However, a silent voice is one of the things that he is pitching. However, he says, these are my picks. I honestly think the least you know about these movies, the better. But he did he did provide some descriptions here. So A Silent Voice. It's the story about a high school boy who's about to commit suicide, but before he does this, he tries to make things right with a deaf girl he used to bully when they were younger. The story is about making amends with the things you've done in the past and reconnecting with those you've distanced from along the way. That's pitch number 1, A Silent Voice. Pitch number 2, I Want to Eat Your Pancreas.
Oh, wow.
And he says, I know the title makes it seem like a weird movie, but trust me, it isn't what you think. It's the story about an introverted boy who has no friends suddenly befriending an extroverted girl who's suffering a fatal illness. This movie had me ugly crying in the end, and yes, the title does make sense in the story and does add to the emotion. The fascinating name for a movie. And then pitch number 3 is Weathering with You. This is the most recent movie from the director that made Your Name, set during a period of exceptionally rainy weather. High school boy Hodoka Morishima runs away from his troubled rural home to Tokyo and befriends an orphan girl who can manipulate the weather. If you liked Your Name, you will also like this movie. So there you go. Pitch number 1, a silent voice. Pitch number 2, I want to eat your pancreas. And pitch number 3, weathering with you. Now, he did make note here of which one he would prefer to do. I don't know if I want to mention that. But
well, I'm not picking. So
yeah.
You already know it, Kyle.
I mean, I do, but I want your help to pick this one. Yeah, so I am not. I know Weathering with You is supposed to be really, really good. Not sold on that one yet, by the description at least.
I think it's about a girl who's a cloud. I'll just spoil it for you. But like when I heard somebody talk about it, it reminded me of when Sokka falls in love with the girl who has to go be the moon.
Yeah. Okay. I gotcha. A silent voice. I also heard good things about. These all definitely kind of have a theme to them. They seem about sad boys befriending girls.
Are these all anime movies?
Yes, they are.
Okay, I thought so.
But I don't know. I feel like the suicide thing is maybe a little too much. So personally, I want to go with I Want to Eat Your Pancreas, because I think the title is just too ridiculous to pass up. It sounds like it's not meant to be a comedy, but it's just like, I mean, we watched The Devil is a Part-Timer and he works at McDonald's, and like they have some ridiculous names. So I'm interested in that one. Melissa, I want to know what one you would pick if you had to pick these 3.
The first 2 sound too sad. I'm interested in what if the weather was a person. So I would go with Weathering with You, but it's not my choice this week.
Okay. Well, Ignacio would also really like to talk about I Want to Eat Your Pancreas. So I think we might go with that one.
Okay. You guys have fun. I will not be watching that one and considering joining you this week. I'm just not feeling a movie that's going to make me cry. I'm not into it this week. You guys have fun.
That's
okay. And I'm going to be laying on the couch watching the Lord of the Rings trilogy, whether I have any side effects or not. I already blocked out the weekend for that.
Sounds good. That sounds like a plan. So I will let Ignacio know, and he will be on the show next week to cover I Want to Eat Your Pancreas. So there you go. Good stuff. Melissa, last thing we need to mention. You shot down my idea to cover Gundam. So we are not having a hot Gundam summer like I was hoping.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Okay. But one of the things you and I was talking about off mic was the German show Dark. It's on Netflix.
Yeah.
I've seen the entirety of the show. We also actually covered season 1 of the show way back on the Whatnauts podcast with me and Paul. It's one of our better performing YouTube videos.
Yes.
Yeah. So I would love to talk about this series with you. This was one of the ones you were like, I'm gonna check it out and see what you think. Have you gotten a chance to?
And I did.
check it out.
I did. I watched the first 2 episodes of it. I dig it a lot. I would like to cover this.
Sounds good. I'm excited because, I think, Melissa, you will love this one.
I love the mood of the thing so far.
yeah.
I love the way it looks. It's shot beautifully. I love every set, like every house, every forest that they go to. It's a great looking show. And I think this is great timing to watch this. We'll be watching it alongside Loki when it premieres on Disney Plus next month, which will be a time travel romp. Dark does not seem like a romp, but we'll have 2 contrasting time travel stories to talk about at the same time.
There you go. Sounds like a plan. Yeah. Good. Okay. Now we can finally talk about this whole show. I'm excited.
Good.
Yeah, because that was the thing. Like, it was one of our better performing YouTube videos, and everyone was like, do season 2 when it comes out and stuff like that. And it was just like, well, maybe I'm not, okay, no promises. And now we have the opportunity to do that and talk about it in depth.
Told a coworker that about this podcast, and I'm like, oh yeah, and we do YouTube videos of it too, if you ever want to try watching the live stream. And he looked it up on YouTube, and he's like, oh cool, you did an episode about Dark. And I'm like, I didn't.
It's technically us, but us, not me. But yeah.
Yes. So. Have fun listening to that one anyway. I mean, you have to listen to me every day at work, so maybe you have your fill of me. Go listen to Kyle and Paul talk about Dark.
Yeah. It is available on Netflix, and that is the show that we will be covering at the end of each month for the next 3 months. So get started on that. I think they're short seasons. It's only like 10 each. So go check that stuff out.
Is the show concluded at 3 seasons?
It is concluded.
Okay.
With 3 seasons.
Nice.
So I cannot wait. I'm excited for that. But next week, don't forget, I want to eat your pancreas is what we are covering.
Nom.
So there you go. Melissa, where can the people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Wilkywit. That's WILKYWIT. And listen to my other podcast, Saturday Morning Obscurities, where me and my brother Jams talk about weird old kids shows you feel like only you remember. We just put out an episode about the Cartoon Network Groovies, which were these little music videos that would play as like interstitial commercial breaks on Cartoon Network, where they would like they'd remix old footage from like Flintstone. Yeah.
I remember that one.
Like they'd remix like old Hanna-Barbera footage, or they'd make some like new song and do like a newly animated video to go with it. There's a variety of things. It's a very fun episode.
I also remember the one, I don't remember the character. It was the dog character. And he was just like, it's like pictures of him like walking by the camera a bunch, and the song is like,
circles!
It's like, I don't need to walk around in circles, walk around in circles.
Circles is my favorite one. Circles changed my life. We spend a lot of time talking about Circles.
Cool. Good stuff indeed. You guys can find me at Yo Kyle Springer on Twitter. And if you guys want to stay up to date with all of the podcasts and stuff we do here at the Whatnauts, you guys can find us on Twitter at the Whatnauts. So go like, share, subscribe. You guys know the deal. If you got some kind words to say, go say some kind words. Go rate and review us where you get your podcast. That would be wonderful and would help us out a ton. But thank you all so much for checking this one out. This has been number 155. Is that right? 155? 155 of the Whatnauts review show. Is that right? I feel like that's wrong. This is gonna bother me.
Okay.
If I don't know the number.
Let me look at my podcast app.
155. We
confirmed.
Got it right. Confirmed indeed. Yeah. So thank you all for checking this out. We will be back next week. We will see you then. Bye.
Bye.